Just waiting for YouTube to start on it. Good morning, everyone. Now, today's meditation is going to be very different compared to other ones because I want to take you in a step that you can instantly gain something from this one meditation, that you can instantly liberate yourself from one conditioning that you have. So we're going to have a little bit more of a focus in it. Now, even in terms of meditation, I would go as far as to say is this is probably one of the most least spiritual topics in terms of meditation, but it's the most important because when you think about our life and how we grew up, we were each born to this world as a dry sponge. And when we were born, we instantly started to soak up information from people, from our environment, from the experiences we've had. And until we recognize these different patterns that have influenced us, that have kind of given us that veil of perception, we're always going to get caught up in these different types of traps or, spiritual cul-de-sacs where you have this roller coaster of life and then something happens and you repeat the mistake down the line because we never learn from it. Now, I like to always express conditionings as you learn them whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter what family you're from. It doesn't matter who raised you. When we're born, we learn how to people from the people around us. And it may sounds like a silly statement. We learn how to people from the people around us, but you really need to look at that and take it to heart because you're not only learning how people communicate, thus how we learn how to talk, you're learning how to walk through observing other people moving. We learn how to express ourselves through those around us. We learn how to think by those around us. And, it's not only do our parents or our biological parents pass down physical information, you receive that emotional and mental information from those who have raised you. So if you grew up in poverty, people who are around in strife all the time in that type of survival mode, that's the mentality that you're constantly getting feeded. It's the same thing with privilege and entitlement. It's one of the reasons why, thank you for joining. It's one of the reasons why when we look at children, we learn racism, we learn to be prejudiced, we learn to hate certain groups because as a child, you don't know what's right or wrong. You're learning it from those around you. And the issue that we have here is many of us live our lives out without questioning this factor that we are learning automatically from our surroundings, and we indiscriminately soak up this knowledge. Now, all this meditation is really guided toward is you looking at your own experience in life and you looking at the patterns that really kind of are red flags, those things that repeat, those emotions that really set you off, those, statements and actions of other people that really hurt you, and fundamentally always questioning why. So even in this meditation today, you can look at the 5 settings from a story, the who, what, when, why, and where. So you got to really identify, when did this conditioning set in? And I always use my own life as my example because it's the only reference frame I know. But I have 2 very passionate parents and they're very fiery individuals. And in terms of their communication, they can get loud. And instinctively, before I recognize this conditioning, that would be the path of least resistance for my own expression. And these paths of least resistance are those, the habitual, the subconscious, the automatic responses that we do, those autopilot moments in our life. And until we really turn to invest ourselves in truth, we're always going to kind of have that autopilot be based in conditioning, be based in pain, be based in trauma. And this meditation is so you can liberate yourself from that. Now, we each experience this on our own in these long moments of suffering where we experience something and then we have that aha moment where we learn and grow and we no longer believe it. And if you don't think that this is true, that you can't, recognize new things about yourself or that everything about you is true, just look at what you assumed to be true in life previously that you found out to be false. Most of us have the example of Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy. When we were little, we were so in that absolute knowing and truth that this was real. And when we grew up and when we got wise to the game, we came up to realize, oh, that's false. So it's these same things, but for our own actions, but for our own emotional responses, and even that, our own physical responses as well. Because we can look at any type of family that deals with addiction or obesity or drinking, and all of these things are very influenced because of the environment you're in. And again, remember, you not only receive the genetic information, the physical kind of traits and habits, you receive the emotional and mental ones from the parents and surroundings as well. So, in terms of our meditation today, I just want you to relax, just relax. And if you have something to, you know, think about, we can always look at our contradictions, those things that we always say to other people, but we don't always hold true to ourselves. Those are signs and patterns and flags for you to identify, because those are points where, you can inquire and look. And those are likely recognizing the conditionings that you have via that. So again, just allow yourself to relax, just find a nice comfortable position. We're going to start off with our 3 bells and get right into our meditation. Allow yourself to let go of all the things you need to do today. Remember that the only thing that matters right now are these few moments of peace and silence. Just as much as we spend our lives doing and acting, we must also spend our lives being. So allow yourself to simply be and relax and let go. We all have those moments. Looking back in time, reflecting in the present, realizing, oh my gosh, my dad did that. My mom did that. I sound like grandma. I sound like grandpa. Or even your older sibling. We find ourselves in this game of habit, of patterns. But do you ever ask yourself why? Have you ever sought to end the pattern that hurts you the most? Take time to locate one now. What do you want to free yourself from today? Is it the short temper, like your parents? Is it the selfishness as you've experienced pain? Is it the hurt when someone wronged you long ago? Is it learning how to forgive because life has been cold? We each have things that we hold on to, pains, traumas, experiences, patterns, behaviors. But we must understand that they are unoriginal to us. How you phrase things, how you see the world, these beliefs and assumptions, all is built upon others. Who were you before you were named? We must come to question this game of life, this divine play. However, we can only question the player of it, ourselves. We must look within. Do you talk to yourself internally like you were getting scolded to as a child? Do you see others as lesser people because of certain teachings you received? Are you scared of situations because of past pain? Are you overconfident because you're holding one success and applying it to everything else? The truth is the most humbling thing, for it leaves no doubt. But we can only recognize truth when we recognize what is false. And we must know right now, this idol, this person we've built upon ourselves, we call them me. We experience it as I. But until you've squeezed out your own sponge, you are filled with the conditionings of others that cause chaos, whether you like to see it or not. We must each come to the point and understand it's not you, fundamentally. So look at these patterns. Look at that point you sought to liberate yourself from. Where does it stem from? Who does it sound like? When did you first learn it? Why do you continue to do it? And how do you perpetuate this lie to yourself? When we truly question ourselves, we liberate ourselves. For the imagination crumbles under any ounce of scrutiny and pressure. One can be upset, but it's simply silly. The lies of the mind and heart we keep telling ourselves. The justifications of why we continue these patterns. But understand it is a wheel of inertia. The more you invest yourself into this pattern, this conditioning, the more it will spin, the more it will repeat. It will never end unless you see it. And again, we must understand each thought stems into an emotion. Each emotion stems into a physical action. For the body is connected. Our recognitions must be known on many levels, not just one. Seek to discover and explore. And just like the weeds in a garden, you must discover the root cause of the problem, your attachment to it. Why do you continue these patterns knowing that they cause you pain? Why do you continue these false patterns even if it brings good? False is false. True is true. We recognize these concepts for test, so why not ourselves? Look internally and see your own patterns and behaviors can end the snap of a finger, but you must see them first. So look within you. What is something you hold on to? What are the things you predetermine? What are the many things you believe you know? Question them. Again, question, question, question. Seek to fully understand them. When did you firmly hold on to this belief? And why? It was mentioned before. What were you? What are you before you are named? Can you truly say that you weren't here because you weren't named? Clearly, you were alive and experiencing life. So what was it like before you received any of the imprints of people? And these are things we can come to know now. These are things we can come to know through our introspection. But you must sit and look. What patterns take control of you the most, that you lose yourself in, whether they be emotions, physical sensation and action, or mental activity? What are the rabbit holes of your own being that you lose yourself in? This too is another red flag or point to look into. When we honestly question these patterns, we can see they are imprints from past, learned in the earliest years of our lives, perpetuated through our own addiction to them, our own belief. But again, you dictate and determine your reality. You have a choice. You have a choice to continue down this path of ignorance, a simple lack of knowing, and arrogance, assuming you know everything. Or you can truly question the fallibility of the mind, heart, and body, and question the origin of its thoughts, emotions, and sensations. And see, not only are they temporary, they're ill-advised, they're illogical, they're wrong, they're simply just silly. For all internal environment noise that we hear and perceive is imagination. Yet the glue that binds it into reality is you, your belief, your affection, your attention. So come to look at yourself. See yourself as a being who is aware of their own conditionings, who is aware that their first impulse is based upon something or someone else. When you see the world in such fashion, you can recognize instantly we suffer because we are constantly living in the past, never fully adhering to the present and now. For if we did, we would not live with judgment, predetermination, fear. We would be open, we'd be humble. and we would act and be one with this moment, freeing ourselves from the torment of our own chatter. See yourself as the window of awareness. All thoughts, emotions, sensations pass through you like the breeze of the wind. But you are not the wind. You are the window. You can close it at any time. Simply show no interest in these patterns, and they will fade away. But again, you must see them first. You must recognize them first. For if you don't, they will keep tricking you. Like in days of old, the coyote, the fox, the trickster of the animal kingdom. Story after story, getting those who follow and listen in trouble and chaos and suffering and pain. But the fox is simply another name for the mind, cunning. So what tricks do you fall for? What traps are you constantly getting caught in? Is it anger? Is it self-loathing? Is it sadness? Is it arrogance? Is it separation? Is it doubt? Or is it fear? Know now too, even love, when misguided and misunderstood and misused, can too cause problems. So you must question and truly look what is real and what is not. What is conditioning, what is not. Until you know for certain, and you will know when you discover. You must continue to look within and question yourself. Life is constantly showing us the lessons we need to learn, but are you seeing them? Life is constantly bringing us to the table of recognition, but are you stubborn and ignoring them? As life goes on, patterns get worse, and their effects more severe. So as we age, these patterns, if uncorrected, they destroy lives. They no longer just hurt us. They no longer just hurt an object. Because life, again, is putting you in the position to learn over and over and over again. We must understand life is not against us, it is with us. It wants us to liberate ourselves. For you are life. This entire process of birth and death is to provide an experience called life, an opportunity to grow. However, until we learn the lessons that truly hold us back and cause us the most pain, we will be stuck on that step of development. So look within you. Again, seek to push and question your own contradictions. When someone makes you mad, reflect upon yourself, for it only bothers you because it is something that you do yourself. Recognizing our own conditionings is but one piece of the puzzle. Putting ourselves in the position to understand them, it will take love, it will take courage, and ultimately, it will take forgiveness. For much of our conditioning as people is rooted in pain and suffering, fear, doubt, distrust. But you must recognize we are all born into this world. We've all been caught in the same traps. And although we experience different lives, the conditioning and the effect is the same: delusion. Most live their lives without questioning it. And because of that, again, as we've discussed, as we've looked into, they're living out the conditionings and past of others. To live in a world knowingly with beings that aren't aware of such things, and to liberate yourself from your own pain, require the same point of focus: compassion. You must love yourself so you may grow and free yourself. Open up the doors of opportunity you couldn't even comprehend before. And to uplift those around you, and to remind yourself they weren't fortunate enough to know things like you know now. So treat them just as a child who's learning how to walk, with patience, with encouragement, and with love. Do so with yourself, because ultimately, if you do not do it for yourself, you will be incapable of doing it for anyone else. We must truly look within. These moments of peace, quiet reflection, simply sitting, they are not required to reflect. Because again, life will show you those lessons. More often than not, life is that voice that says, put your money where your mouth is. And once you believe yourself to know something, you will be tested to see how you respond to it. And it's okay if you mess up. But just remember the point. Recognize the error and simply seek to correct it. It took years to establish these conditionings. It takes dedication. It takes consistency to remove them. But just like the finger blocking the sun, the only thing holding you back is a belief. We only know when we know. So we must always seek to discover, not assume. And when we seek to discover our own inner self, the whys, the hows, when we notice ourselves getting swept away in emotion or physical action and sensation or mental activity, simply question, well, what was it that caught my eye? What was it that brought me down this path? Look, look, look. We must always be looking to discover the truth. It expresses itself in the subtleties. So you must use your sense of keen observation as you do your entire life. Be present for it, and it will no longer sweep you off your feet. Allow yourself to simply decompress and unwind, to digest this meditation. Hold on to these words, not through thought, but through action. And that concludes this morning's meditation. And as always, the little post-meditation breakdown. In terms of reflecting, it's always important that we recognize we can't really move forward in this spiritual process or even just developmental process if you're not into the spirituality stuff. You can't grow as a being until you really have a solid foundation. And it's just like any type of study, science, anything we do in school, you have to learn the fundamentals first. And the most important part about reflection is it brings you back to that point where you kind of clear this foundation of mud out, because it's based upon, someone else's pain, someone else's pattern of communication, someone else's emotional expression. It's this path of really kind of updating our own system before we can kind of give ourselves that restart, that reboot, so to speak. So when you do this process, it's always important to kind of bring yourself back to like the very beginning, those early memories, because it's these first 7-10 years of our lives that we get the most kind of imprinting or conditioning. And just as said before, we do this automatically as kids. We don't learn what to kind of soak up, what to not soak up, because we learn from the people around us. We're simply learning how they act and how they are, and we're like, okay, that's how we do it. Yeah, so it's that important process of really looking back at like certain emotional expressions. For example, it's something that I had in common with one of my meditation students, and it was this process and understanding of shame, because of like whenever we made a mistake in our own families or whenever we were wrong, it was very like, you're wrong, and it was like the end all of end all. So it created this almost like, well, I don't want to be wrong type of effect. And when I am wrong, it creates a very, internal, like strong effect and external effect too. And everyone has these different things, whether it be your family has a lot of people who drink, like if people are drinking like 2 bottles of wine a night, or, drinking like a little small handle or something like that a night, you're around that environment, you see that as normal. So it's this question of, well, what have I been taught is normal? Excuse me. And again, it's that point where we need to look at, well, why? Why do I still do that? Well, what are these things that make me still do that? And again, it's not just the real serious ones, it's all the subtle things too. And I like to use the example of, I used to, and me and my brothers, we used to always make fun of my dad for like clearing out his plate. Like he would like scrape it clean with his fork. Like we all make fun of the sound at dinner. And, fast forward like 20 years, I'm sitting there in college and I'm literally like, shh, and I see someone looking at me like, what are you doing? And I looked at my plate and I had seen that I literally had like scraped it down. Like the exact same thing, getting the little last little bite, the last little flavor. So I had literally just repeated that pattern subconsciously. Now, the thing is, everyone's doing this, and it may not just be for those small physical actions or those more severe kind of addiction like actions. We do this for the emotional stuff too. How you express yourself is so much based in how people around you express themselves when you were younger. And that's the stuff to start really looking into, because you can see it in the emotional patterns, you can see it in the mental patterns because they're so closely connected. The shame, the judgment, the guilt, all these different things that kind of just snowball into who you are now. And as you can see, You don't always attach to these things, these lessons that you're taught when you're younger. Sometimes you go to this action of, straight up rebellion, and now you go down this different avenue. So you can see when you really start to investigate these concepts, the cause and effect is very, very wide. And if you look at the scope of it all, but again, it all boils back down to that initial sticking point. What really made that stick? What really made that anchor? And everyone always wants to talk about trauma and how do you let go of trauma and how do you let go of serious painful situations. And again, I mean, we need to understand it's that point towards the end of the meditation where we live in a world where everyone is going through this. It's not just you. Everyone's born into this life and they believe themselves to be, in the knowing of absolute truth and that their lessons and stuff have been right. And then there's also those who grow out of it and realize that the lessons that they learned were wrong. But as we've all experienced, there's many people who don't question themselves at all. And having the experience of working with such a wide age range, my eldest client is 84, and going to retirement homes and seeing and interacting with the people there, you know, it doesn't matter how old you are. There are definitely people who go from birth to death without realizing these things. And the unfortunate part is most of it's been living in a lie when you really look at it. Because again, these conditionings aren't original to you. So just like Sherlock Holmes, we learn through deduction. When you really recognize and see what you're not, the only thing that's left is that clear space of your own pure being. And the only thing that's left is, again, the less condition, the least amount of conditionings that are there possible. So it's just really important to really, really, really look, take some time. Not only that, but be very diligent about it. Because in terms of this, the simple recognitions of your own being and the own lies you tell yourself are the most liberating things for you. And if you really take this meditation and these lessons and these pointers to heart, then your life can instantly take a complete 180 and go a different direction for the better because you've now kind of finally digested and processed all these things that you aren't you. And the thing ultimately we all know is that deep down when we realize that those aha moments, we've always known. There's always been that feeling of I knew that, but there was just that seed of doubt. So don't allow yourself to listen to those seeds of doubt. Really seek to understand that, everything about you right now has been built upon something or someone else. And it's how life goes. But the question is, are those experiences, are those past moments, are those, conditionings and imprints of the environment you grew up in, are they interacting or rather interfering with how you perceive? Are they interfering with how you interact and engage with life? Because if you find yourself in that latter category where your judgments, your own kind of drama, your own chaos, uh, you know, doesn't allow you to see the greatness in someone that's brilliant, if it doesn't allow you to see the opportunity in a good situation, and if it doesn't allow you to learn from an experience, then, it's something that's holding you back. So leave no stone unturned in this seeking out truth. Because when you discover the lies we tell ourselves and kind of the lies we keep propagating within our own life, like that, doorways of opportunity just flood in. Because again, life is with you. Life wants you to succeed and liberate yourself. Life wants you to discover truth. And it's always actually pushing us towards it. It's always pushing us towards truth. But the thing is, most of us just have that, well, that's not how I wanted it to be, or that's not how I expected it to be, type of kind of idea about it. And even then, you have the ones who refuse to listen to the signs and then get themselves in even more trouble. So we really need to look at the excuses we tell ourselves, because again, it's the contradictions. The contradictions will set you free in terms of the reflection process. So I really hope And I really encourage you um, to take time. And again, I hope that you can learn a lot from yourself in your own life and your own experience. And this doesn't need to be something you just do sitting down in meditation. It could be while waiting for the bus. It could be while waiting for something to fill up in the sink. It could be, it could be waiting in traffic. It could be before you go to bed, right when you wake up. It's any moment is an opportunity to free ourselves. And again, it's more often than not going to happen when we catch ourselves. So don't get discouraged. It takes time um, to kind of even wake up to the fact that we are making these mistakes and that there are these avenues of life to explore. So don't ever lose hope in the fact that you're being fully capable of liberating yourself. But again, you've been living a life of conditioning for so long, just like everyone else has. So as long as you're reminding yourself constantly, just remind, remember, like the more you do it, the more it'll stick. Because when that's in the forefront of your mind, it kind of is that filter. So when these things come to you, it's almost like you're closing the door and locking it. Those thoughts, those emotions have to knock and get your approval. So even if you do, again, you find yourself getting swept away in the moment with the habit, with the impulse, bring yourself back. Again, inquire why. What got me that time? What was the trick? So we all live this pattern of, fool me once, shame on you. But in reality, we're all at like fool me like a million and 12. So it's still not a point to shame yourself, but it's a point to be like, okay, well, those are a million and 12 examples that I have to look at of how I got deceived by myself. So I just want to say thank you guys for joining me on this meditation. Thank you for joining on Instagram Live. I appreciate the comments. And I wish you guys just have a great day, have a great weekend, and I will catch in with you guys next week for another liberating and powerful meditation. Have a good one, guys. Bye.